Okay, so I want to say welcome everyone. As you know, I am Miranda and I'm the manager of public and network engagement at Community Foundations of Canada. I am joining today from Treaty 13, Tkaronto, also known as Toronto. It's the traditional territories of the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, and specifically the Mississaugas of the Credit River. And I am really excited to be getting down into the practical, tactical part of executing the tracking progress website. I'm so excited. Some of you are more experienced with the website. Vanessa, you're on the call. And actually on our last peer call, we saw a little bit of what that website looks like. And so many of you are also undertaking vital signs for the very first time this year. So I'm really thrilled that you're joining us today, or will be watching this recording later, because Kyle knows everything. Almost everything. Kyle is the man to help you on your way and figuring all of this out. And he is going to be walking us through the first part of this orientation. The second part will be on Thursday at 1 p.m. ET. And I'll share the link again to register in the chat if you haven't registered yet, but we will also be recording that session. So now I will turn it over to Kyle, who will take us into the website today.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Miranda. No pressure there, setting me up too big to fail, but appreciate the introduction.
It's because I have so much confidence.
Well, I appreciate that. So as Miranda mentioned, my name is Kyle Wiebe. I'm a policy analyst with the International Institute for Sustainable Development. And 4, maybe almost 5 years ago now, the IISD developed what we call the Tracking Progress tool, which is the tool that we have since then been able to provide to communities around the world. And in starting last year to Community Foundations of Canada in order to visualize and show their vital signs data, which we've been collecting for a long time, on an online platform to give users a bit more access and to provide you with more tools for kind of communicating your message and also managing your data. So we have been working closely with our partners who are the developers and based out of Vancouver to develop this platform, but I was there from the onset of developing the architecture. So I do hope that I understand how the platform works and can answer any questions that you have. But today's focus, there's a lot that you can do with these tools and platforms, but the focus of today is as you are new Community Foundations onboarding onto the Vital Sign kind of Tracking Progress Network, we want to walk you through just the basics of what the website will look like and how you can kind of use the tools on the feature to customize the site to give it your own look and feel. So as Miranda mentioned, we will be recording this presentation. I would strongly recommend using it as a reference document because we will be covering a lot of information today. We'll kind of be going over the entire process of customizing the look and feel of the platform. We won't be touching yet on data as we're going to have your data uploaded hopefully by the end of the day or tomorrow, but we'll have it ready for the next training session on Thursday, which will cover topics related to data, so how to visualize that data, how to organize under themes and indicators, and how to kind of edit it for your specific community foundations. But today we're just going to focus on the look and feel and customization of your platform. As I said, we will be recording this, but we are also going to be sending out some training videos following the meeting. Those are going to kind of cover the exact same content that we go over today, but they're shorter, much more digestible videos that are focused on a specific content. So, those might be your first choice to go to if you're trying to review something we discussed today, because they're a little easier to kind of find rather than scrolling through an hour-long recording. But you'll have both those resources available to you as a bit of a refresher. And I also believe, Miranda, that we will be setting up a meeting in the future, sort of an open office hours type meeting, where once you've explored and played around with the tool a bit, if you have any lingering questions, that'll be an opportunity for us to kind of work together online, and I can answer those in real time and help you out with that. So I'd just like to give that bit of a preamble because there will be a lot of information that we go over. but that we are going to try and prepare you with the resources necessary to answer those questions that you have if something doesn't stick with you today, and through those resources or through meetings in general. It is going to be a lot of information. We're in a short kind of time frame here, relatively short, given what we're going to cover. I will be taking some pauses intermittently throughout the process to answer any questions. So we're not going to just keep them all at the end, but we're going to kind of go through different segments of the platform and then answer some questions along the way. So if you do have questions, please jot them down and feel free to ask them when we open it up for the conversation. Maybe I'll start with asking if there's any questions. And if not, we can jump in and start with the first parts. Is there anything that needs to be addressed or discussed before we kind of start digging in? Kate?
Thanks. Sorry, I am late to looking at Miranda's direction about the geographies. And so my question is, it seems that we get to choose this one or that one, or can we choose both? And the other question is, if we can't get down to the smallest municipality, then a metropolitan area in our neck of the woods is like 15,000. To just have that would not be particularly helpful. It would be better than to have the county one to compare to. So I'm just making sure when we're talking a county, like I'm expecting it's the CMA. Does that make sense? So then,
yeah, there's a few questions in there. A county, and this is good to talk about this because you've all obviously received the sheet from Miranda. A county isn't a Statistics Canada based definition. So you might have to catch me up when you refer to a county, what you're referring to in your kind of local context.
So for us, I mean, throughout the province of Ontario, we're broken into counties or cities. And so cities may be within counties and separate. In our neck of the woods, Simcoe County is separate from two of the cities, which is Barrie and Orillia. They operate on their own. But within that, there's like 160 smaller municipalities that make up that county. It's a two-tier governance. As much as possible, I want those little municipalities because we're only taking a portion of the county, but they have designated that Midland, which is a small town, but our sort of biggest town in North Simcoe of these kind of 5 municipalities we're looking at. But to just have it as the measure for our area, it would be better that I'm comparing to the whole county than to narrow down to. Am I making any sense?
Yeah, totally. So I mean, part of this goes back to the earlier conversation that I hope some of you are at with the geographies training that we did when we got you to fill out that sheet. With how geographies are nested within one another. When we upload data onto the platform, well, there's kind of 2 components to this. When we collect data, we don't always have a lot of choice of what level of data we collect because specific indicators are only available for specific geographies. Sometimes that might be a census metropolitan area, like a large city. Sometimes it might be a health region or economic region. It all depends on the indicator. So that's kind of the first variable that we use to kind of filters us down into choice. So we have the indicator, that's what's chosen. From that indicator, what geographies are available? So we have a list of geographies then. Sometimes it's just one, sometimes it's only available one geography. A lot of the data we're going to release tomorrow is at the census metropolitan area or the police area. So that's just one geography, or police areas are just one geography. So we can't get it at census subdivision, it's smaller communities or counties or whatever it may be. But there are instances, especially when it comes to data that is included in the 5-year census, where we can get that data at multiple geographies. Those CMAs, which are kind of larger cities. You can get it at census divisions, which are kind of larger areas still that include cities and some rural areas. often. We can also get census subdivisions. Those are smaller. That's kind of the smallest that we collect this data at. So that would be like a city proper area, and then every other kind of city around it would be a census subdivision as well. And those cover the entirety of the province. So in most instances, it's likely that community foundations will want to get that data at the census subdivision level when it is available at multiple geographies. And Kate, that kind of seems like where your question is headed. Like, I think census subdivisions makes the most sense for you. Now, when we had that table, or the table that Miranda distributed, that wasn't a table that included every indicator, because some indicators there was no need to make a choice because the choice is already defined by it for us when we chose that indicator. So that list was only a list of indicators that had multiple geographies available. So do you want to show this at the Midland or the larger city area, or do you want to show it the census subdivision or the smaller area? And that's where your input is needed, because some community foundations do want it at the larger level because they want to kind of show the community as a whole. Some want it at a smaller level. So that's why we're kind of asking for that input. So if we didn't ask for input on a specific indicator, it's because unfortunately there's no option for us to show it at a smaller level. So in your instance, Kate, I think putting census subdivision everywhere would make the most sense when that is an available geography to your community foundation.
Absolutely, thank you. But in some cases it says, like Miranda's indication says or, and I'm wondering if we can have both.
Great, so that's, yeah, sorry, I missed that part of the question. With the way that the platform works, we aren't really technically set up to do one and the other. We can't show multiple geographies for a singular indicator. So it has to be a decision that's made. Now, what we will cover in the training tomorrow, get a little ahead of ourselves, but we will, once we upload the data for you, we're going to provide you with all the tools and training necessary on how to edit that information if you want to change the indicator or decide you want to show it in a different way. We will also give you all the tools and resources on Thursday. Yes, thank you. Thursday, not tomorrow. On how to create a new indicator. So it is possible to create two indicators. So you could have, example, median household income for the city and median household income for smaller communities around the area. And you can set those up as separate indicators. That's a totally acceptable way. It's just once you start trying to compare different boundaries to one another on indicator, there's a lot of issues you run into, not just technically speaking, but in terms of kind of not misinterpreting or misrepresenting the data. So, we're obviously doing a bulk upload for a lot of community foundations with this data. And we realize that everyone's situation is going to be different. And so we're going to give you the tools to kind of tweak and customize that data when you receive it to represent it in a way that you would like. All right. That's great. So that's a little precursor for tomorrow or our Thursdays. So flipped up again there. Thursday's training. But for today, I'm going to start by just sharing my screen here. And then turn off my camera because I'm going to be looking back and forth and leaning in hard, but I will.
I don't know who else is a visual learner, but I think it'll be easier to see how the indicators are laid out in the back end of the website and then how they appear as we walk through this. And it'll be easier to understand how the different geographies will map out when we get into the back end.
Absolutely. I at least would hope so. We'll spend a lot of time going through it tomorrow.
Thursday.
Oh my God.
Every time you say it, I just have a little panic attack. Like, it's tomorrow.
I have two presentations tomorrow and I'm mixing them all up. Thursday. Thank you. Thursday.
Yeah, no worries.
All right. So I'm sharing with you now the landing page for a website called PEG. PEG is a tracking progress platform, just like you've received, that we have been working on in collaboration with United Way Winnipeg for about 10 years now. And in the last 4 years, we have moved it on to our tracking progress platform. And actually, the whole reason why we've developed this tracking progress platform is because of the experiences we had with PEG. So when we first developed a community kind of indicator system online, we found we were channeling a lot of money to our developers in order to kind of customize or edit any information, or anytime we had an indicator that we needed updating. A large part of our relatively small budget was being consumed by tasks that we would have liked to have control over and been to edit. And so that's how we created this tracking progress platform. It was a tool that users themselves had the ability to kind of completely edit the core content and information without having to kind of hand over a lot of their budget to maintain and update its site. And as we started off on that process, we looked to other community foundations around the world on, how have they done this? How does this work? And our experience kind of led us to this realization that whenever a community or a city was developing this kind of dashboard or community indicator system, they were starting from scratch and doing it all over again. And they were essentially trying to kind of reinvent the wheel every time they wanted to create a site like this. And it was expensive, it was time consuming. And really, when you boiled it down, every site kind of operated in the same way. There was a list of different kind of thematic ways that indicators were organized, and then a list of indicators you could then click on to see more information. And so we took that kind of core concept of what is a community indicator system, or what is a kind of community dashboard, it goes by many different names. And we created what you'll see here today, which is the track and progress platform. And this is, again, the PEG iteration of that platform. So I'll walk you through this platform a bit today, and then we'll go over what kind of content information we're going to cover on how you can edit this to kind of already, after today, get your site looking and feeling like a community site. So when you come to the landing page, which is just the first page you arrive to, you'll see here that you're welcomed by a nice big hero image representing the community, in this case, one of the rivers in Winnipeg, with some logos of the site so you know exactly where you are. And then what we wanted to pop out was on the left-hand side here is a list of the different thematic areas that we organize our indicators in. So in PEG, we use 8 different thematic areas. And anytime you click on one of those thematic areas, a list expands of all the different indicators that are nested within that theme. You'll see for some that they have 2 icons beside the name, and that's because they are cross-listed across multiple themes. So in our case, housing starts is not only related to the built environment, but also to economy. So you'll see it here again. So this is the indicator side that I just wanted to highlight quickly. We're not going to really touch on the indicators of these themes today. It's going to be on Thursday's session. But what we are going to do is kind of talk about setting up kind of the main framework of your site. So how do we include these logos? How do we include these images? How do we set up different pages for users to kind of visit and read more about the site? And then how do we add some more kind of core content to the site? So this is kind of, I don't want to call it supplementary because the stories and information around data is equally as important, but we're going to focus more on this sort of information today rather than the actual data and indicators. So one of the most important things to know about this site, it is built on WordPress. WordPress is just a customizable web platform. And when you log in as an administrator to your site, using those credentials that Miranda sent out to everyone, you're going to see this dashboard up at the top. This isn't something that is available to general users who are visiting the site. It is just something that is available to you as an administrator or anyone else that you set up as an administrator. And this toolbar kind of gives you the information you're going to need to kind of edit any of the content in your site. So when we're on the site here right now, we call this the front end because this is the front of the site that users are going to experience. You can also navigate to the back end of your site. And to do that, you're going to hover over the name of your site and you'll see a dashboard option. And the dashboard is going to take you to aptly named dashboard, or something that we also refer to as the back end of the site. And it's going to provide you on the left-hand side a series of different tabs that are going to allow you to customize and edit that content on your site. Again, this is not something that the general user will be able to access or see. So we're going to go over a bunch of these different kind of tabs today and talk about what they mean for you and how you can use them to customize your site. But I do just want to kind of spend the first moment here going over the user section. So we sent instructions on your login information as well as how to add some users, but I'm just going to cover it again here in case it's helpful to see kind of in a recording. So if you click on users, you're going to see a list of all the different users on your site. Yours won't be as robust as this right now, as Peg's been around for a while. But if you want to add a new user, you could simply click add new. You're going to see two options here, add existing user, add new user. I can only imagine that most of you are only going to need to do the add new user step. Add existing user would be if someone already has an account on a tracking progress platform somewhere else, and now you want to share this platform with them. So for instance, if I was going to jump on a different platform, I would add an existing user because I already have an account on a tracking progress tool. But for yourself, so you're going to want to go to add new user. You're then going to input a username as well as an email, and then give them a role. If you want them to be able to edit the content on your site, use the administrator role. If you're thinking about setting up more niche kind of roles for individuals, just a few backend stuff we can talk about later on which would be the appropriate option to use, but I'd recommend for most cases to use the administrator role. All you have to do then is add new user. If it works, you'll see a little banner here show up that says successfully added new user. If it doesn't, it's going to be red and it's going to say it wasn't successful. And the main reason why it wouldn't be successful is if you input the wrong email address or if you used symbols in the name. So, if you're trying to use dashes or periods, it doesn't like that for usernames. So please just use characters instead of actual symbols. Once you've had, one step back here. This is very important. Once you select the administrator role, there's going to be two options for the toggle boxes. I think I mentioned this in the email. Please click on both options. We have had problems with people receiving confirmation emails, and if they don't get the email, but they already kind of have an account, it creates a lot of difficulties trying to wipe that account and reset it up. So please toggle on both options before adding the user. Now, once you toggle on both these options and you skip the confirmation email, you obviously then have to send this information that you wrote, so the username and the email, to that individual so they can log in. But you're also going to have to send them a password. So if you've created a new account and you need to send that person a password, you can simply go to edit. Then you'll see a list of information for that account that you just created. There's going to be an option near the bottom under account management that says set new password. You just simply click that. You can type in a password you want, or it'll give you a randomized password, and then you would hit update user. And then when you send the email for their login information and everything, include that password with them. Similarly, if you already have an account, it's all as you should with the information we're going to send out. If you want to change your password, this would be the same process. Go to edit your account, set a new password, type in the password you would like, and update it. All right, so that's the first step of how to navigate between the dashboard or the front end and the back end. Similarly, if you want to go back to the front end, you could hover over the name again and go visit site, and that will take you back and forth between the two. Any questions yet? Right, I think I've lost the ability to see everyone as I shared my screen. So if you do have a question, please feel free to just unmute yourself and speak up.
No one has a hand up right now.
Perfect. So we will keep moving along then.
Kate, did you have a question? No. Okay. Great. We're okay.
All right, so now let's get into some of the fun information on how to kind of set up your sites. So I showed you Peg and what Peg looks like now. But when you've received your site and you've hopefully logged in already, this is what it's going to look like for you. it's going to be a blank template, not going to be any customized content. There's just going to be a bunch of text here, no images. And what we want to do now today is kind of transform this into this. I'm just going to get these Zoom controls out of the way. So I'm just working on a site that we've created for another project right now, but this is going to be very similar to what you're doing. This one's just called the New Urban Agenda. The first thing I like to do when I'm setting up a new site is to go to the dashboard and go to this media tab. So if I click on this media tab, it's going to show me all the kind of media, the images, the icons that I've uploaded onto the site. Now I've already uploaded these. Your media library will be empty at the moment. What you can do is you can simply use this media library simply acts as just a storage system for any of the content you might want to use in your site. So if you're using logos or icons or pictures repeatedly, it's going to be easy to just drag and drop them into here and kind of build up this library of media icons. All you'd have to do if you want to add another icon is just simply navigate to it on your desktop or in your folders, drag it, drop it. See if I'll give an example here. Just looking for a file on my computer.
Could you also just go to the add new button there and you can upload it from your computer?
Absolutely. So there's a few ways you can do this. One of them is simply just dragging and dropping. If you want to navigate through, you can go add new. It's going to open another window where you can just drag and drop, or if you were to select files, it would open up your Finder or the equivalent on a PC. You can just navigate through your desktop to find your computer or find the image you'd like. I will make a point of noting that if you're unfamiliar with any sort of web design or kind of images, that's all right. There are a few different kind of image types to look out for. So a few of the common ones are like JPEGs, PNGs, or SVGs. So they have that kind of suffix after the name of the file. Don't really have to get into too much of what they represent at the moment, but if a lot of the logos you're going to want to use, you're going to have them kind of transparent on the background, that transparent background, so they look nice and clean rather than having a white box around an image. It looks much cleaner where you can just upload it as this file type. So that typically is representative by a PNG file or an SVG file. So those are usually the ones with more transparent backgrounds. Now, if you don't have a transparent background, that's okay. You can put something as a placeholder, but I would recommend if you have someone on your team or elsewhere that can convert those files into images like this, it gives the website a much cleaner look and feel. You can also edit images once you've uploaded them. So let's say I have here PNG. So you'll see this kind of checkered background means it's transparent. So I have a PNG of the SVG wheel here. If I wanted to kind of edit this file, I could go edit more details. I can go edit an image here, and that will allow me to do some sort of cropping. So if you find that the file has a lot of negative space behind it, and it's kind of cropping bizarrely on the site, you might want to go into here. You can rotate. You can do some very basic editing of the image here.
Kyle, is there a specific image size that it likes best? Because I know like on Facebook and stuff like that, there's like a, for downloading for Facebook or something like that, there's specific sizes that they like best. Does WordPress have that option?
So yes, that is a very good question. It depends on where you're using the image. So we're going to cover a bunch of information. You can see up on the top on this site here, we have an SVG wheel. That's obviously going to be a different size than maybe what we want to use for something on here. But when when we do ask or prompt you to kind of upload these images, there are recommendations in the text on the image size. So each kind of component has a desired image quality type or image size type. but it should be, you should be prompted in that section with the ideal image size. And we'll see that very shortly as we kind of cover the information. That's a great point though. Okay, so this is a media library. I like to show it first because a lot of what we're going to do is in the first few steps is just using the media available to us to customize and edit the content. So let's go through the first example here is I want to now add a logo to the top of my page. So in order to do that, I'm going to go back to the front end and I'm going to hit this Customize tab. Now, Customize tab is going to kind of expand the window over, give me a few options on the left-hand side here. And it's going to be kind of a one-stop shop for most of the front-end kind of visual editing that we'll be doing on the platform. So you'll see we have a bunch of different options here. We're going to work through many of these today. But the first one I want to use is site identity. So on the site identity window, it allows you to kind of edit or add text. You can see here this site text, we have a tagline text, and we can also include a site icon. Now, I personally prefer, or think it's much cleaner to kind of include the text you might want to as part of the image. It just makes it frame out a lot nicer. So if I were to click select site icon, you're going to see here it takes me to an option to select the file I would like, or to just go right to my media library. So I show the media library because obviously this is where that content is being pulled from. But you can also just use on a case-by-case basis as you're working through to add content as you're working. Once you do add a file here, you selected a file, it will also be stored in your media library. So you don't have to start building out your library right away. You can just address it as you come to these different situations. But I like to have it up here early, just so you know where it's pulling information from. So I'm going to choose the PEG logo as my kind of site identity. Oh, I misspoke. It's been a while since I set up a new site. This site icon section, my apologies, is actually going to edit the icon that you have in your browser tab. So you'll see right here by default, it's showing a WordPress icon because it's a basic WordPress site. We're going to be choosing what kind of logo we want to have on our tab here, which gives it a nice look and feel as a customized site rather than just kind of a work in progress site. So with that in mind, I'm going to choose my SVG wheel. You'll crop it, it will add there. Once you've done a change, you have to hit publish for that change to be saved. And now once I close this, you're going to see that that WordPress logo has been replaced by my SVG wheel. So now going back to customize, let's go to logo. That's the spot we're looking for. So on the home page, we have a logo option. Now I'm going to select the logo that I want in the top left corner. Again, it's going to take me to my media library. I'll select the logo this time around. And there we go. Now you'll see here that why I was mentioning I like to kind of include the title in the logo is that this text is kind of hard coded in there. So sometimes it will change depending on how the logo is or the length or width of the logo. So it doesn't expand too far to the left. So it can just get a little messy if your logos are bigger to try and kind of push out some of this information. Now it won't look exactly like this because right now it's trying to display everything with this customizer window open. But if I were to close it, you'll see just a bit here, but it's still a little condensed. So I generally would recommend removing that kind of text. And to do that, you just go back to site identity and you can get rid of that placeholder text that's in there. I'll publish that. And there we go. Now it's just my logo. So site identity and logo are the two options that are going to allow you to edit this kind of top left navigation area, as well as the icon that appears in the browser's tab. Now, well, another reason why it's important to have a nice kind of strong prominent logo here is that this logo actually serves as the home page button. So if I were to be navigating around to different pages on the site, if I want to go back to the main page, I can use this logo as a button and it will take it back to the main page. This is something that's very intuitive for users who are, it's a very prominent kind of website design feature. So it's quite intuitive for users to know just the logo will navigate them back to the front end. So the next thing I want to do now is I have my nice logo. It's kind of customized to my site. I want to add what's called a hero image. And a hero image is just this main image that displays on the front end of the site. So to do that, we are going to go to the home page. And you'll see then instructions for how to kind of upload and create this hero image. So this is where it's saying that it refers us to the ideal kind of dimensions of an image. So in this case, 1500 pixels is best quality. It will, though, do some automatic scaling with that image if it doesn't kind of fit quite right. But I have an image here of a beautiful area of the Forks in Winnipeg that I'm going to use. And there we go. It's going to upload that image for me right away. Now you see here, this is left-hand bar that is blank. That's not an accident. That is where the indicators will eventually be placed once we uploaded those indicators or those themes. Now, although we've uploaded a hero image, we have some other options to add more content to this home area, this home page hero image area. The first is going to ask if we would like to overlay a logo on top of it. So like we've done on Peg, we put our kind of Peg logo. I'm going to want to do that. So I'm going to choose, I'll just choose the Peg logo or the ISD logo here. I'll overlay that. I'm going to ignore this other language section here because it's not going to be something that's relevant right now. But if we keep scrolling down, we're going to see we have more options. So you can scale this image using this slider bar here to make it smaller or larger. You also have the options to orient the placement of this image. So if you'd like it right justified, and for some reason in the top right corner, you can do that and you can scale it around. Now, the reason why it's kind of options and you can't just drag it and drop it anywhere you'd like is because the platform is set up to automatically adjust depending on the device that the user is using. So in this instance, I'm just on my laptop. But if someone is viewing it from a mobile device, it will adjust these images accordingly to be best viewed on that device. So it will scale this proportionally. You can also add additional text below the image here. So if I'd like, I could just put in test and it will place that text below. I can customize any of that text using the kind of font size options below. I can also change the color of it if I'd like. A bunch of other options to be added. I could also add subtitle text to that text. There's a lot of kind of different options you can do. I would, again, encourage you to simpler is usually a better design. So my preferred site design is just something that is clean and simple and lets users know where they are. But we do have multiple options available for you to add and edit that content. You'll see here, I got a lot of information to scroll down. That's because if you do want, you can set this up as a slideshow. So these main images will slide through and show a slideshow of different kind of hero images. So you would just essentially have to repeat this process and create a new hero image or homepage tab that will cycle through. So you would, again, select a new file, select a new logo, select new text, recenter, resize it, and everything. Not to, again, kind of infer my preferences too much, but I do find that on these sites, it works best if it is just a one landing image. I think that the dynamic feature of a kind of slideshow draws people's attention away from kind of the core content that is on the site. And so I'd rather have people focus on data and stories rather than kind of a scrolling image. The last thing I'll show here in terms of options for editing your hero image is we have this opacity section at the very bottom. And opacity is essentially, it will kind of overlay this black square on top of the image. So if I set it to 100, it's 100% that black square is going to be visible. So now it's kind of completely over top of the image and I can't see anything. However, I set it to 50. It's going to kind of be halfway opaque. And 0 would be essentially you can't see anything over top. Now, the reason why we included this in the site design is because you really want your logo to kind of pop, and depending on the colors of the hero image you've chosen, your logo, depending on its color, might kind of fade into the image. It might be kind of hard to see. And so using opacity can be a really powerful tool to kind of darken the image and really make your logo pop. So there we go. In a few clicks, we kind of got our site logo. We've changed the kind of tab on the browser. We've got a nice image and our logo. Already in a few clicks is already feeling like a unique site rather than just that boilerplate template that you will have received, which looked like this. Are there any questions at the moment? I know it's a lot to take in, but we've kind of covered some of the main core customized content already. Are there any questions I can answer now? Just trying to pull up the chat here. Can you upload all the official vital signs and CFC logos to the media library for us? It might be easier if Miranda gets those and sends them out in an email, and you can just drag and drop all those files into the media library. Just because the way it's set up, we can't really do the bulk upload of that media content to a site.
Yeah,
Miranda, is that something you'd be able to assist with?
yeah, we have them in a shared folder, so I can send that out to everyone.
Perfect. And no, that's a great question. I mean, anytime we can reduce the burden of small tasks and something that everyone's going to be using, I think that's very helpful. Okay, so let's keep moving through. So we've kind of covered the logo, site identity, and homepage. I'll quickly touch on a few of these kind of other options here. So in typography, by default, I forget the name of the typography that we use, but you can change it. If you are going to change the typography you want, you can go to basic. It's going to give you different styles to choose from. So Merriweather is the one we use by default. You can use the kind of default colors it will select, and you can set it for different header options and paragraph options to have different or the same kind of typography. Unless you have a very skilled communications expert on your team, I would recommend against kind of trying to change or going beyond basic. Even using basic can sometimes create some weird stylistic issues, but certainly do not try the advanced option unless you have someone who's experienced in this, because it will let you allow you to edit kind of every section of different content styles on your page, which can create something really wonky if it's not done correctly in terms of changing colors every time a paragraph or option check. So on PEG, we just use default. Encourage you to do the same. Basic if you're feeling a little more ambitious, but yeah, try and avoid advanced unless you have kind of communications or graphics designer expert on your team. Similarly, on theme colors, we do have 3 preset options on changing the banners that appear on Track in Progress. So that would be the header here and the footer. By default, I think this is gray. You can choose dark, which would be just black, or light. The reason we provide these options is, again, because logos might not always lend themselves to being prominent when displayed on a set background. But we do find gray is, in most cases, the best one to use and the most familiar with kind of website design. The light can be used, but text is often better seen in white and doesn't pop out as well. And the dark is just kind of a little darker than is kind of friendly to the eye when it's just all black. So this gray is a nice balance between kind of different colors you'll be using on your site and logos while also being prominent enough to display your icons on. So those options are there. Feel free to explore them, but I would encourage individuals to use the gray option. Sorry, I'm just pausing through where to go next. I don't want to kind of get ahead of ourselves in some of these other tabs. So I think I'll pause there for now for the main content. I haven't really shared anything new. So unless there's any other questions in the chat, I think we'll move on to the next step, which will then be setting up your pages for your site. Any questions there before we move on to pages? All right, so then let's move on to how to create pages for your site. So in order to do that, I'm going to close this customizer window we've been working in. I'm going to hover over the name of my site and again, go back to the dashboard. And now we're going to start working on the section called pages. So when I click on pages, you're going to see here is a list of options for any of the pages I've already created or that already exists. On all track in progress sites, you're going to see the sample page by default has been created. And there's the content here on the sample page. Now you can delete this sample page if you want to get rid of it right away. That's fine. There's no need to keep it. If you want to delete a page you've already worked on, you can simply just trash it. You'll be moved to the trash and be left with this blank kind of option. So to add a new page, next to the page's text is going to be an add new button. Now, anytime you're adding new content to the track in progress site, you're going to be taken to a new window where it's going to walk you through step by step how to add a new page. So the first thing to do when adding a new page is to give it a name. I'm going to call this our about page. And then below will be a kind of text or customizer box where I can add any of the content I want to add about this page. I'll put learn more about us. I can add whatever text I wanted there. I could also insert any images or icons if I wanted to add media. It's a good place for me to kind of, if I want to insert an image, I can insert links to other pages. So if I want to have, what are we doing? Link out to some work, I could just simply hyperlink this text, put it in a new box. It's a really kind of, a lot of options are available to you to add information to the text that you would like. You're also going to change these different options by using kind of the different paragraph stylings or headings, whatever you'd like. Once you've kind of added the content to your site or to your page, the next thing you're going to do is you're going to choose a template style. So we kind of created two different template styles here for pages on how they'll display once saved. I don't really have to get, or I won't get into it too much today. You can play around with them, but the main difference between these two is default template is going to show the name of the page above the content, whereas wide with no title is just going to show the content. So the first thing on, let's say if we went to a page about PEG, it's called about. If this was set as default, then the first thing I would see here would be about, because that's the name of the page, and then the content. I personally prefer to use wide with no title, because then I can just set, if I really want to have the name of the page up here, I could just set it as about. But then you can also change the name to something that's a little more reader friendly rather than kind of more friendly on just a menu or dashboard. So once you've done that, all you have to do is simply save or publish the post you've made. Once you've published, it's there. You can again edit it if you'd like. If you want to make an edit, you can just simply click update, and that information will now be saved on the system. I'm also going to make a show you two more things we're going to do with pages today. So the next one will be to add sort of a news and reports page. So news and reports. I'm not going to add anything to that yet. I'm just going to publish that, and we're going to do something with that in a second. And I'm also going to make a page called let's say front end. I'll set this as, and I'll go over a second why I'm creating these kind of pages. So you'll see here, once you've created a page, it's also going to give you a link to that page. So if you were to put that URL in on the browser, users would automatically be navigated to that page. So each page has its own unique URL. So if I'm going to go into the About page, and I'll explain what I'm doing here in a second, I'm just going to copy that URL. And now we're going to go back to the front end of the site. And you'll see here when I go to the front end is I've created these pages, but they don't appear anywhere. And that's because what we need to do is we need to edit and create a menu bar. So to edit and create a menu bar, we're going to go back into Customize. We're going to go to Menus. And we're going to go Create New Menu. You can call this menu whatever you'd like. It's not something that appears on the front end. It's just a name for reference if you have multiple menus. So I'm just going to call it Main. And you're going to have two options where you like this menu to be displayed. I can either have it displayed as the main menu, which refers to the space up top, or as a footer menu, which would be a menu that is displayed in the bottom. I'm going to do this menu up at top. Once I've selected the location and given it a name, I'm going to go next. And it's going to ask me to add items to that menu. If I click on add items, you're going to see here all the pages I've created. So I'm going to click on About. It's going to add my About page to the menu. I'm going to click on News and Reports. It's going to add my News and Reports menu. And that's all I want right now. If I wanted them switched around, I could simply just drag and drop them. Or if I wanted it nested within one another, I could actually kind of drag it and drop it so it's like this. So if someone was to click on About, they'd have News and Reports underneath that. For my purpose, I'm going to have them each as their own separate page. And if I go up to the top and I publish that, you're now going to see I have my About page and my News and Reports page. So I can visit either one of these pages on their own. So here's my About page. Oh, go back to my About page. And my News and Reports page, which didn't have any information on it yet. One thing that I will just draw your attention to is now I'm currently on the About page, and I can click Customize to do some work on this About page, but the window is going to look a little different. So if you are doing any work through this Customizer bar, I always recommend you return to the home page to do work, because that's going to give you all the options for some of the hero images. So if you're not seeing anything for the hero images or home page, why can't I add it to home page? It's because you're probably on a separate page, so it's not going to give you those options. Okay, so I've got my menus, got them up top here, but I also want people to kind of look through kind of the core content of my site before they kind of get to that page. So as you can see on PEG, we have these what we call widgets. And people might be scrolling through and come to the widget first rather than kind of looking at the menu bar. And we'll have a bit of a blurb about PEG and what it is, and we want them to learn more. So we want them to take this button, click on it, and then navigate to our About page. This is just kind of a way to set up a path for users to kind of find more information on your page. So what I want to do now is walk you quickly through how to create one of those widgets that will sit under here. Again, we can do this through the Customizer option. We can click on Widgets, and you'll see here there's an option to add widgets. So we can add them as a sidebar above or below the content area. I would strongly recommend just using these two, as we haven't really set up the design that well to handle a sidebar widget, but we can have it above or below content area. Now, content area in this case refers to what's being displayed up top here. And this is just a sample text or page that's kind of uploaded primarily on all sites. And in a second, we're going to talk about how to remove this or how to add page content here. But for now, I'm going to add this below the content area. So below whatever is displaying here. We have an update there, so it's going to ask me to add a widget, and it looks like, all right, this has been updated since I've last done it. So I want to walk you through it here. A bit of a learning process for me. But once we choose the area, just going to expand our options to add an image or add a widget. There's a lot of different widgets if you click browse all that you can use. So there's calendars, there's columns, there's spacers, there's connection to kind of HTML text. It can be very overwhelming. So what we did is we just created 4 tracking progress widgets that are easy for users to use and set up. So you'll see them at the bottom as tracking progress. And primarily you're going to be wanting the ones I was showing you on Peg before are either the kind of small image widget or the large image widget with smaller text. So depending on which one you'd like to use, you can use small image or large image. I'll use the small image one for now. And then it's going to give us a section where we can edit this widget that we're working on. So again, if I go select upload image, it's going to take me to my media library. I'm going to continue to use this lovely photo of Winnipeg. It will then ask me to put some main text in. So I'd put about Peg, kind of a call to action. So learn more about what Peg is doing in the community or whatever you want. And then you put the actual button text here. So learn more. And then I would insert the URL for this widget. Now, this can be a little tricky in a sort of order of operations, but you'll remember I copied and pasted that widget or that link before. So before you do create a widget, if you want to create a link to it, it's helpful to kind of copy and paste that URL you want beforehand. Otherwise, you're going to have to publish temporarily this, go back, grab the URL, put it in. It's not the end of the world, but it's a bit of a time saver to copy it before you create the widget. So there we go. There's my widget. I can publish that. And now it's going to be below the main content area of my site. If I click learn more, it's going to take me to my about page. So going back to the main page of the site. Actually, this may be a good time for a quick pause. Are there any questions over the last kind of content that we went over?
Does the button have to take us to something that's already on that site, or do we say we want to send it to somewhere else on our web page? We can just add in any URL, or does it have to be already in this?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. It can be any URL. So let's say you're using this more as a data platform, but you have your own kind of organization site elsewhere. This could link out to external sites. It doesn't just have to be internal pages or content on the platform. It can be anywhere. Does that help answer your question, Penny?
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah.
Perfect. Any other questions? Yeah, just feel free to jump in because I'm kind of losing my browser there when I share my screen.
So it's Kate, Kyle. I've heard something about Tableau and that potential opportunity to have, I'm thinking through a URL, kind of a ongoing feed into an area from data outside. Am I way off base on that?
No, you're not way off base. It's just a bit of a complex answer to the question, but Tableau is primarily a data visualization tool. So you can create different graphs and images and icons on Tableau. But it is an external or third party, as we refer to it, feature. And so to really actually use Tableau on a tracking progress site, you need to kind of install plugins to allow those images to kind of show. You could, like I have, on our about page here, like I put an image just about this indicator. You could, or just an image of Winnipeg, you could put an image of a graph that you created on Tableau. If you, for some reason, find that you can't create the data visualization you want on Peg, you could just save it as a PNG and have that image dropped in here. But to actually link out to live sites, like third-party sites will update, requires certain plugins. And the reason we don't offer that is because part of the reason, or part of the way we're able to kind of scale tracking progress sites the way we are and keep the price at what it is only because these are all built off of the same kind of template. And to create data security and provide timely updates and be able to manage all that core content, we can't have a lot of third-party plugins. And we can't have sites one-off using their own plugins, because then we can no longer guarantee that we are able to monitor and update those sites accordingly. So by all means, using static images or PDFs or PNGs as adding content in, that's great. Or linking out to sites if that information is elsewhere is another great tool. But in terms of like bringing in content through a plugin, it's not possible, or it's highly discouraged, because it won't be a part of the tracking progress system anymore. We can't offer any of those other services.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Kyle, this is like, may not be within this purview, but our web page is on Squarespace, and would obviously like to have this option of people on our website to just be able to click on our data information page. So is there going to be a kind of an upload to your website information session coming up?
Sorry, I'm not sure if I understand the last part of the question. Like,
well, it's just that we want to have this available on our website, right?
Yeah.
So we want to be able to send people from our website to this page, right? But we're on Squarespace. So I'm assuming that somewhere on Squarespace, we'd have to have a button that would send us to the WordPress, this page, I guess. Hey.
Yeah, that'd be my recommendation. And we do work in those cases where organizations already have a nice setup platform. The users are familiar with the URL and want to use this tool less so as a landing page for their community foundation, and more so it's just a data platform. So, on your Squarespace, you could create a page up here that says view or data platform.
Right.
And
Okay.
directly it would link out or bring them to a link where there's like a page where it talks about the data platform and visit the platform here and have a button, right? Like in wherever, or you can even have a widget that says visit our data platform on your Squarespace site.
Yeah.
And that you would just use the URL for your site here.
Okay.
Post it in there, and then it would bring users to this area, and vice versa. You can navigate them back to the site through the menu bar.
Okay, great. Thanks for that, Kyle.
Yep, not a problem. Any other questions before we proceed? All right, then we will keep going on. We're getting close to kind of the end of the content here. So going back to the site we're working on, I want to now talk about kind of how to remove this text. And kind of, we talked about adding below or above the content area, this widget. So if we go back into customize, and we go to homepage settings, you're going to say it's displaying the latest post. And what that means is it's just showing the latest post on the homepage. So this would just be what we call a post. If I don't want that to happen, we don't use it on Peg, I believe. Yeah, we got rid of that. I just want to show what's called a static page. Now to do that, ignore what's coming up here. That's something different. On the home page, I'm just going to choose that page I created called front end. And now it's just going to remove that content. So it's kind of a workaround. It's not the ideal system, but if you just create a blank page, call it front end or blank or whatever you'd like, and you set that as your home page under a static page, it will remove that content. You could, of course, use that as an opportunity to kind of create a front end page that has some text or an introduction if you'd like. And the next option you'll see here is there's an option for posts page. So we've kind of taken off your latest post showing here, but you still want to show your post somewhere. So it's going to ask you to define a posts page. Now, what we use typically that post page for is to show content, news releases, reports, documents, anything like that on PEG. And we have to define it specifically because a post page will look different than just a normal blank like our about page. It's going to have this sort of tiled view of the content you're creating. So if you want to have this sort of look and feel of a page where users can view any sort of stories you want to create or any reports you've uploaded, any of that other information, what you'll do on this section is choose your reports page or whatever page you've designated to show that information as your posts page. So now you'll see here, I've chosen my post page. I have that kind of similar look and feel to the PEG platform. So now if I publish this, I've chosen kind of what I want on the front end content to be available. Going back to the site, see here that text is gone, but my news and reports page is now acting as this reports section. If you do want to generate information, we're going to cover this more so on a training that's yet to be, I think, decided, but we're going to talk more about social media controls, how to add social media content to your site. To create posts, you would go back into the back end. There's a post section here. Again, here's that hello world kind of default one that appears. You go add new, and then you can actually add more content, more posts that will populate that page. Again, we're not going to get into information on kind of generating content within that post page, but this is kind of just a precursor for how you would add information if you want to play around and explore with it, or if you're just curious as to how you can add a page that looks similar to this. And that will be at a later training that we've yet to we've yet to decide on a date for it, but when it will be scheduled once there's more content on your site, once more data has been released and once you're maybe ready to kind of publish the site. So the last thing I want to do on this posts page, or when we're talking about menus and different pages, is to show you how to kind of add this nice feature of having little icons beside those pages. Just makes those pages pop out a little more, kind of provides a visual cue for what the page will be related to. This is a bit of a complicated process or a bit of more involved process than simply clicking around on the platform. Because obviously these icons are drawn from a large library of icons that we don't have default set up on track and progress platforms. But to add these icons, we use a third-party system or a third-party site called Font Awesome. Font Awesome. So if you just Google Font Awesome, you'll find this website. If you click on a search icons section, it's going to bring you to a library of different icons that you can use. You're going to want to make sure you select only the icons that are free, as some of them you do have to pay for. And once you kind of set that filter, you can then search for different icons. So if I want to search for icons related to the idea of about, that doesn't really provide what I want. So you can just keep trying different keywords. Information works a little better here. I like this information logo. So to use it on your site, you'll click on it. And this is where you're getting into a bit of a computer language here. You'll see an icon and you'll see this FA, kind of this code for the icon. And in it, you're going to see something that starts with FA or FAS, and it's usually between these quotation marks. You're going to copy that text. It's copied there now. Once I've copied that, actually, they've changed, they've updated, so I want to see if it's an easier way to do it. Okay. Once you've got that text copied, you're gonna go back to your website and you're gonna actually edit this in the back end. So I'm gonna go to dashboard now. I'm back in the back end of my platform. And you'll see here's an option for menus. So I'm in the menus section now. There's likely going to be a drop down on what menu you want to edit if you've created multiple menus. In our case, we're just using one menu, which is, if you'll remember, what I called main. So here's the menu I'm working on. And you'll see the 2 pages I've included in the main. If I click this little arrow down, it's going to expand the options. And you'll see something called CSS classes optional. That's where you will just paste the text that you've used. Now, it looks like I can no longer just select the in quotation marks text, so I'll just delete this here. So I just have that FA text. And once that's in there, I can save it. Perfect, it's working. Now, if I go back to the front end of my site, I should have the logo there, but it's not working. So always fun when we have to troubleshoot problems live. Let's see if it's changed how it works. Because that used to work all the time, but it looks like Font Awesome has maybe changed how they set it up. Okay, let's try this again. If this doesn't work, I will find out why Font Awesome has changed and what it's doing. Oh, it's fun to live troubleshoot something. I'd hate to be to let down Miranda's precursor of myself knowing everything here. Okay. So it seems to be a little issue with those icons. I apologize. I will find out what is going on there. I'm just going to check it on Peg here quick to show you how it should be working. But you should see here, you'd have this. This is our footer menu. I want to go to our main menu. You see here, we have this text in here. I wonder if it will work if I try and pull it just from an existing page. All right, so there it is. It is in fact working. It just seems like Font Awesome is not letting us grab this code exactly as it's written. So it might have to be something you copy and paste into a Word document and then just grab that code snippet. So does that make sense on what you're trying to kind of grab from this? It's not working if I just kind of copy and paste it. I kind of have to, it seems like I have to type it out and grab it individually so it's the right code. That's a bit of a nuisance, but does that make sense on what I'm trying to extract from this kind of
doesn't
line
look
of
like it's got the
information?
dashes, right? Like the FA dash solid. I was wondering, I think the other one didn't have the dashes in it. Might be wrong.
FAS, FA dash circle.
Yeah. Oh, well.
You know,
Anyway.
there are other, like Font Awesome has a few different libraries. So this might be, They have some older libraries that might work better. Font Awesome 5. There's some previous versions, so this might just be the latest version. Search V5 icon. So maybe, yeah, I'm old using a different version. Let's see what the latest version is here. All right, so now we're searching the older version. Let's see if we can make this work. Let's just add this newspaper icon. Let's see if that will work. Or if I have to use the latest version. I'm not sure which one I was using before. Yeah, so this is, I might be using. Let's try that. There we go. All right, so I was using a different version. So it seemed like that worked. So you may have to play around with it. I'll see what's going on. I can send a recommendation for the appropriate version to use, but I then wound up just using the older version that was online, 5.15.4. You want to jot that number down. Okay, so apologize for that little hiccup, but we now have our logos here next to our pages to give them a bit more of a custom look and feel. All right, so we're back on the dashboard of the site here. Let's go back to the front end to see what we've covered and kind of go over it again. So again, we've gone over our main logo, a logo or image in the icon in the browser tab, gone over the hero image, how to set up icons and text and images on the hero image, how to create a widgets page and link it to the other pages that we've created in the menus, and how kind of that circular navigation path available. That's it for the core content that I wanted to get to today. Kind of gives you a good framework for setting up all this customized content. Any questions for maybe we let you go a little early, or if there's something you're worried about before we have the next training on Thursday that you would like answered ahead of time? Feel free to unmute yourself, as I can't see everything that's going on at the time. So if you do have a question, feel free to unmute yourself and speak up.
No one has their hand raised at this point. Everyone has my email, and I can connect you with Kyle if you have questions. And I will see you Thursday, and we'll also be sending out this recording.
Actually, you know what, Miranda, there's one more thing that if there's no other questions, we have a little time for that I'd like to touch on, if that's okay.
Yeah, go
I
for
apologize to anyone who is keenly excited to get out a little early. But this is a question that comes up often, and if we have some time, I'd rather address it now than kind of down the road. But you'll see here on sites like Peg, on the very bottom of the page are site collaborator icons. So we know that community foundations often have partners that they work with. Community foundations just in general, community foundations of Canada. So if you do want to acknowledge your site collaborators on the site, I want to show you how to add these icons, which can then be linked out externally to those collaborators. So to do that, we'll go back to our site here. You will go to the back end of your site, and under ISD settings is going to be social media and collaborator settings. If I click on that, you're going to see a list here of to add collaborators. So I'll simply go add row. It's going to ask me then put in an image. I'm just going to put the ISDs in. It's going to ask me to put a link in. So just grab pegs, but normally I would link this to the ISD website, and then some sort of title that the title won't display, but it's just going to be used to kind of save that image and information. So if I wanted to add another logo of another collaborator, I could just go add new, and I could repeat this process for as many times as I needed, or I can remove that one if I decide I only need the one. And if I clicked update, that would then display on the bottom of the page. Conversely, if you are interested in kind of getting your social media connected to the site already, on this social media's controls page, you can add in the links to your Facebook accounts, to your Twitter, to your Instagram or LinkedIn, if you have any or all of those. And once you do, you can click update. Now, if we go back to the site, you'll see here this information is kind of populated at the bottom. There should also be, or if you wanted to, the follow us will then generate and it will have links to those URLs that you put in for your different social media controls.
And those little icons automatically show up, the Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn?
I believe they do. If they, for some reason, do not, then you can go into customize. There's social media controls. And you may have to show social media icon in footer. I don't know. They should then, I can't recall if they pre-populate once you add the links in or if you have to add this on, but if you do, it's under the homepage, customizing options, social media controls. So you can then show them in the footer. You could also show them in the header and you could show them floating on the side of the toolbar. So that will be like this. Does that make sense?
That's great. Thank you.
Perfect. We will talk more when we do the kind of communications training about posts and other information about social media controls and how to optimize pages for sharing on social media. But that's something that we'll save for another day.
I'm glad you said that because I think my head's going to explode.
Yes, it is a lot, but as I mentioned, that's why we record this as a reference. And I will also be sending Miranda a list of the links to shorter, quicker training videos on particular sections of what we covered today.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kyle. And thank you everyone for joining today and sitting through this. I will see you on Thursday. All right. Have a good afternoon, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.